The room was always quiet at night, but inside that silence, a single sound grew louder. A young woman sat by her small keyboard, her fingers trembling at first, then slowly steadying as she pressed each key. She was only 21, yet her nights were spent not at parties or dinners with friends, but here, practicing alone. The notes she played filled the empty corners of her apartment, like fragile threads weaving the outline of a dream. Her friends often sent her messages, photos of bright lights, dancing, and laughter. She looked at them sometimes, a small ache forming in her chest. The ache wasn't jealousy, but a quiet sadness, like watching life move on without her. She was giving something up, and though she told herself it was for her dream, there were nights when that dream felt far away, as if hidden behind a thick curtain of doubt. Each evening, after finishing her shift at a local cafe, she would walk home under the dim glow of streetlights. The weight of fatigue pressed on her shoulders, but she carried with her the thought that tomorrow might be brighter if she practiced today. Her hands were calloused from work and tired from hours of scales, but she touched the keys as if they were promises, as if every note carried her one step closer to a stage she had never seen. Sometimes, she whispered to herself that her sacrifices might never matter. Maybe she was just wasting her youth, pouring hours into a dream that the world didn't need. Yet, even with that doubt, she returned to her seat. She played while others laughed, and she wrote songs while others lived freely. The quiet of those nights was heavy, but inside that stillness, she began to find herself. The music spoke back to her, like a secret companion who reminded her why she chose this path. She was building something invisible, something no one else could see yet. And though the nights were lonely, a small flame inside her refused to die. She didn't know then that these lonely hours were not empty at all. They were the foundation of her future. Each missed party, each sacrifice, each tired night was laying bricks on a road that would someday lead her out of the shadows. The months turned into years, and the sacrifices only grew heavier. She was still young, but her days were no longer her own. Mornings began with rushing to her cafe job, afternoons filled with hurried classes, and nights were reserved for music. Sleep was the only luxury she had truly abandoned. Yet even in her exhaustion, she refused to let go of the keys. But doubts were louder now. There were evenings when her hands hovered above the keyboard, unmoving, as questions swirled inside her mind. Was this worth it? What if her dream never took shape? Friends had started careers, traveled to new places, even fallen in love, while she remained here, chasing something uncertain. She felt the weight of time pressing down, as if she were running after a train that might never stop for her. It was during one of these restless nights that her mentor noticed her weariness. He was an older man, a teacher at the small music school she sometimes attended when she could afford the lessons. His eyes carried a quiet sadness, the kind that comes from knowing what it means to give up on a dream. He once told her, gently but firmly, that sacrifice was not lost, was investment. He had walked away from music years ago, and though he had made peace with it, he didn't want her to repeat his mistake. His words became an anchor for her. He reminded her that every lonely hour at the keyboard was not wasted, but stored, waiting for the right moment to bloom. Still, she struggled. Money was tight, and she often had to choose between new sheet music or groceries. Some nights she practiced on an empty stomach, the hunger echoing inside her chest, louder than any melody she played. The temptation to quit grew sharpest when auditions came around. She would sign up, then nearly withdraw at the last minute, paralyzed by the thought of failure. What if she wasn't good enough? What if all these years of sacrifice only ended in silence? Her mentor would tell her to play anyway, not for the judges, not even for the audience, but for the girl who had given up so much already. She listened, trembling each time, and forced herself to play. The auditions rarely led anywhere, but each performance became a test, chiseling away at her fear. Through the hunger, through the loneliness, through the doubts, she kept building. She didn't yet see it, but every sacrifice was shaping her into someone stronger than she ever believed she could be. The night of her big performance arrived quietly, without any grand announcement. Yet for her, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. She stood backstage, her heart racing, palms damp against the polished surface of her instrument case. The stage beyond the curtain was flooded with light, a sea of faces waiting, though she couldn't make out their details. All she knew was that this was the moment she had dreamed of through every lonely night, every missed party, every sacrifice. As she walked out, the weight of her journey followed her like a shadow. For a moment, Fear almost silenced her. What if she failed now, in front of everyone? What if all her sacrifices ended in humiliation? But then, she touched the keys. The familiar smoothness grounded her, reminding her of the countless nights she had spent here, alone, building a bond with her music that no audience could ever break. The first note trembled, but then the next came steadier, and soon her music began to flow like water released from a dam. Each chord carried with it a piece of her past, the laughter she had missed, the tears shed in solitude, the nights she had whispered to herself to keep going. It was as though the music itself had been waiting for this moment, to finally speak, not only for her, but for every sacrifice she had endured. The audience grew still, captured by the depth of her sound, and as she played, she realized that the applause didn't matter. What mattered was, her sacrifices had not been in vain. They had become her strength, shaping her into an artist, capable of reaching into the hearts of strangers. Every lonely night was here with her on that stage, transformed into beauty. When the last note lingered in the air, there was silence, then thunderous applause. She looked up, the lights shining on her face, and for the first time, she allowed herself to breathe fully. It was not just success she had found, it was peace, the understanding that dreams do not bloom suddenly. They grow slowly, watered by every quiet act of persistence, every unseen choice, every sacrifice. She stepped away from the piano, no longer the lonely girl in a small apartment. She was now the woman who had turned sacrifice into song, proving that dreams demand much, but in return, they give back everything. Dreams are not won in a single moment. They are carved out of quiet persistence, from lonely nights and choices no one else sees. The young musician's story reminds us that sacrifice is not the end of joy, it is the soil from which it grows. Every time we choose discipline over ease, we are shaping the life we long for. May her journey remind you that what feels like loss today may one day shine as your greatest victory. If this story touched you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales.